And now to our special guest. Corey's passion for helping humans and dogs excel led her to take a leap of faith and leave her corporate job in 2006 to start two coaching companies. She works with business leaders and high-performance teams as well as canines. Corey's 30 years of diverse experience includes over 15 years of dog training, 22 years of corporate experience, and the last 13 years as a successful solopreneur, delivering a niche service, coaching high-performing leaders, athletes, and canines to achieve their goals. Corey's roles have included senior manager, dog trainer, vet assistant, group tour leader, and mental performance coach. She believes in giving back to the community and over many years has volunteered at the Toronto Humane Society and the OSPCA. Currently, she is active with Markham Fair, Stouffville Ladies Floor Hockey League, and is proud to be an evaluator for St. John Ambulance Dog Therapy Program. She also holds the position of Director of Communication on the Canadian Association for Women Entrepreneurs and Executives. She has made Stouffville her home for the last 18 years and shares it with Mike, her partner, two stepdaughters, Carla and Allison, Sky, her new Manitoba rescue puppy, plus two energetic kittens, Dino and Demi. She stays active with her two businesses, and when not with the canines or family, she loves playing floor hockey with the ladies or golfing with Mike. During our conversation today and during her presentation, the topics she'll be covering will be learning 8 components of mental performance and how to rank yours, and tips to overcome performance slumps, and how to get into the zone and be laser focused. Corey, we're so glad you've joined us today at GetSetUp. Thank you for joining us. We're so glad to have you as our guest.
Thanks, Kevin. Thrilled to be here and looking forward to sharing some more about mental mastery. So should I go ahead and share my presentation now? And yes, I'm going to be just showing a presentation that I'll be following just to help us stay on track. But I am all about mastering the mind, mastering the game. And as you heard from my bio there, I've done many things, and I've actually created a life that I absolutely love. And one of the things you mentioned is about the floor hockey. And I was just saying before we started is I'm 57 years old. I'm turning 58, and I am still actively playing floor hockey. If I get a chance, I'll ride the horses too. But I just got in from doing a community walk with a bunch of women, people and their dogs. So I'm always trying to stay active, but I always am trying to stay focused too. And that's what I want to talk about tonight, is how you can actually access your mental mastery skills. I'm going to be reviewing with you the 8 components that I focus on to determine where you are with your mental mastery. I'll be talking even about peak performance and what are some of the traits. So as I'm going through my presentation, really take a reflection on where you're at in your life. And if there are areas that you want to achieve and focus on, I'll be talking about how we can get over some of those, either if we get into a rut or a slump and move forward. And I'll be sharing with you some techniques tonight that are something that is very simple. A lot of people focus on the physical, and the mental gets kind of forgotten. But if we look at, how life has been a whirlwind lately, the mental is where, if you want something and you want to achieve it, usually where the performance falls apart is when we don't have the mental part and the mental mastery and focus. So I want to talk to you right now about the mind. And I use the iceberg. Some of you may have seen this reference before. When we are looking at our mind, we have 2 parts of our mind. We have the conscious mind, which is like the tip of the iceberg. That's the part that we're aware of. And then we have a part that's a big chunk of what really controls our day-to-day activities. And that's the unconscious mind. And that's the big chunk of the iceberg that's underneath the line. So if we look at our conscious mind, that's where our thoughts are. That's how we analyze things and where our logic comes from. And it's our rational mind. It's our left brain. The part that is underneath that we're not aware of is our unconscious mind. And that's what holds our values. And our values are what is most important to us and what really determines the decisions that we make. The beliefs that we have are also stored in our unconscious mind. And those beliefs can be ones that are empowering us, or they can be limiting beliefs. There's also our habits. And when I talk about habits, I work with a lot of young athletes, and I'm also talking about the skills that we're trying to develop. So our habits are stored there. Our personality is stored in our unconscious mind, our emotions and our memories. And this is the part that we're not aware of every single day. If we think about values and beliefs, those are things that have evolved over our lifetime. So our values can start even from the moment we've come into this world, where we've been, we've got caregivers or parents, and they're telling us what's right, what's wrong, what to believe. So we start developing our values and belief systems. And that can evolve as we change our life, going from, a young adult into a working environment, from a single person to a married or a partner with a responsibility. So those can change over a lifetime. Habits are something that we do every day. And I think I might be touching today on how they get installed. And then our personality and our emotions and memories. So those are things that are in our unconscious mind, but we aren't aware of them all the time. And realize that 90% of everything that we do unconsciously. If you think about driving a car or using a cell phone or using a computer, those are things you're not really, if I went to type on my computer right now, I would just type it. I wouldn't go, where's A, where's B, where's C, because I've programmed myself to understand that. And that's a lot of the times we program ourselves, even with different cycles that we will run. So I want you to understand that a lot of what we do has been programmed through our lifetime. So changing those things sometimes can take time, and I'll touch on that later. I always talk about cause and effect. So that's what the C stands for and the E stands for. And if we are at cause, and that's where I want us to be, and that's where I coach a lot of people to get to, that's where you are taking responsibility, you're taking action, you're getting results. If you are at the effect side, it means you're coming up with excuses. You're blaming why you can't get things done. And there's reasons that you aren't being able to achieve what you want to achieve. That's when you give up your responsibility. Because if you say, well, I can't do it because so-and-so won't allow me to, you've given that responsibility to that other person. So where I want us to be is taking 100% responsibility of everything that happens in our life. And I get challenged when I say that. And what I'm referring to is the word responsibility. And if you look at that word responsibility and you break it up and think of response, ability, we can control the way we respond to what happens in our life. So for example, if you were in, say, a minor fender bender or whatever accident, you can blame the other person, or you can say it wasn't your fault, and that may be true. But how are you going to respond to that? Are you going to say, okay, it happened, I have to move forward, I have to get the car fixed, I have to call my insurance company? So that's where you're responding and you're taking action for what's going on. And a lot of the times we give up that responsibility and we move to that effect side. So I always like to just bring this to forefront. And when you hear yourself saying, well, it's not my fault, or it's because, or I can't do it, then that's where you've moved into providing reasons to stop you from getting where you want to go. I deal with helping people achieve peak performance. So let's touch on what actually that means. So behavior exceeding one's average, superior functioning, being at your best, your personal best. And when we are a peak performer, what that means is we're operating at our best from a physical side, but also from a mental side. And so a lot of times, if I go back to that cause and effect, a lot of people give up before they even start because they think they can't. And I think we could look at many different people that have been able to achieve many different things. And I use myself as the fact I didn't start playing hockey, and I did play ice hockey. I'm a Canadian, so that's kind of, you got to do that if you live up here. But I didn't start till I was 42 years old. And people were like, "Are you nuts?" And I'm like, I didn't have the time before. So when I semi-retired from the corporate world, I said, okay, you know what? I always wanted to play hockey. Everybody else in my family played. So I went and I played hockey. I wasn't the best, but you know what? I was able to score some goals. And so anyhow, so let's look at what the characteristics are of a peak performance. High self-confidence. So when you believe in yourself and that you have the confidence in your ability, and concentration on the process of the performance. I'll touch on goals if I have time tonight, but when we're looking at goals is we can set an outcome goal, but then we have to think about what's involved in getting to that outcome. And that's where when you are a peak performer, you're looking really at the process that is involved to get you the performance that you want. Resilience is something that has to be there because in life, you're going to run into roadblocks, you're going to run into challenges, things are going to happen, and you have to have the ability, if you want to get the performance at the best level, is to bounce back. And the mental skills that are present when somebody's a peak performer is they have the ability to focus on positive thoughts and the negative fade away immediately. We all can have negative thoughts, but how do we reset, recharge, rewind, and then start over again and come back to looking at what can we learn from this and having positive thoughts? A peak performer, there is a sense of challenge. And I'll be talking about the next one where you have this non-thinking automatic quality. So if I go back to thinking about your habits and skills that are developing, when we are operating at our best, and I'll touch on the zone 2, is that's when you are in a non-thinking automatic process. You are just doing what you've trained yourself to do without any thoughts interrupting where you want to go. And also when you are peak performance, you are extremely relaxed. So that's another thing people will say, well, wait, if we look at an athlete, let's say we look at a football player, they are super hyped right before a game. I am not talking about that hype, that high energy. I'm talking about there's no fear. They've got the ability to just focus and do what they want. So their body is operating without anything stopping. And they're actually that when they have, and even think about if you've had your best performance, and I'm not always referencing, a sport. It could be, you go on an interview or you go out and you have an experience and you go, wow, that just went really great. And you were probably relaxed, you were probably confident. And so you think about those times when you were operating at your best, that it was effortless. And so those are the qualities that a peak performance, that those would be present when that is happening. These are the 8 components that I break down into the mental mastery, or I call this my circle of excellence. If we look at performance, we can look at the 4 quadrants. We can look at your physical ability. We can look at your technical ability, all the skills that are necessary. We can look at your tactical ability. And that's meaning, the lay of the land, you understand like everything that has to be done. Then the 4th component, this is what I'm going to be really drilling down on, is your mental ability. So if I was to break it down and talk to you about this is where I want you also to think about, do you have this? And if you don't, I'm going to touch on some of the skills that you can develop in order to get those skills. So one thing, if we were operating at mental mastery, passion and fun has to be there. So if you are having fun, and again, let's take a career. I'm going to just say, let's look at a career right here. If I was looking at a career, how much fun and passion are you having at this time? And so that's, again, would need to be present. The other thing that is the mental skill that a lot of people may do the opposite of, and I've got positive visualization and imagery. So positive visualization and imagery is when you're imagining your performance. And when I talk about visualization and imagery, some people can actually see and imagine it. Some people can feel when they're imagining. Some people might smell. some people might taste. So visualization and imagery is different to everybody. And it's a matter of making sure that if we were doing some thinking about something in the future, we would want to imagine our best outcome and our best performance in that regard. And that's why I'm saying positive. And when I say a lot of people will do the opposite, what happens is they focus on what if it goes wrong, and the fear factor comes in. And that's where the beauty of the brain. So if I go back talking to the conscious and the unconscious mind, the unconscious mind, where everything is stored and drives 90%, it is the goal getter. The conscious mind is the goal setter. And so when we are trying to set a goal, that unconscious mind wants to produce whatever it is to get you to that goal. So if we are thinking something's going to go wrong, that's going to impact our results. The unconscious mind does not know reality to fantasy. So when we are imagining something that we may want to achieve, some positive outcome, positive performance, your unconscious mind is going to want to deliver that and encourage you. It's kind of like that inner coach that's guiding you to get there and kind of creating what is necessary. I touched on in the peak performance the relaxation. So if we are operating at our best, relaxation is necessary. Motivation is another key component of your mental ability. And that is whenever I'm coaching people, I can focus on most of the other areas. The motivation is the one thing I cannot coach because that's something that comes from within. So if somebody's in a slump, what we would probably do is set some goals, some baby step goals to get them back at being successful so that they can start getting motivated again. Confidence is necessary for mental performance, and then distraction control. So having the ability to eliminate any distractions that may happen. So when I look at distraction control, I'll break it up into two sections. I'll break it up into internal distractions, and those are the distractions that come from within. So it could be a physical injury. It could be your thought process and the thoughts that are in your mind. So those are things that are coming from within. If we look at the other component of distractions, it could be external distractions. So it could be your environment. It could be people around you. It could be the weather. Whatever is happening externally. So distraction control is having the ability to avoid letting those things impact you and being able to just ignore them. You heard I work with canines, so I can do a presentation like this and dogs can be barking all around me and I will be completely 100% focused because I have the ability to do that. So, and if you think about if you were ever going for an interview or meeting a new person, or going to do some new class or something like that, there's probably could be some nerves in that involved, but it's just if you're able to take those negative thoughts or those fearful thoughts out of your mind, or if you're injured, be able to just kind of be focused. And I'll talk about the zone because when we are in the next component, laser focus and concentrating, all of those things are gone. So you think about, I mentioned the non-thinking quality, the relaxed quality. When we are in a highly focused state, you feel no pain. You have no interruptions. You are relaxed, you are confident, and you're just able to deliver whatever it is that you need to deliver. And then the last thing in the circle of excellence is the goal focus. So I mentioned performance and having a goal for a certain thing to happen. So when I talk about goals and when I set goals, there's three types of goals. There's an outcome goal, which, I want to do a 5K race, or I want a certain job, or, I want to score so many goals, whatever. So that's my outcome. Then I have to say, okay, what's the performance goal that I need in order to get that outcome? And then I have to set some goals around that performance. And then the one is it talked about the process to get that performance. There's a process goal. So what is the actual process that's necessary to get me that performance, to get the goal? So if it was a 5K race that I wanted, then, okay, my performance, I'm going to have to and say I had a 5K race with a personal time I want. Okay, I'm going to have to be able to run a certain distance, use my breath, stay focused and be physically fit. Then the process would be like, okay, I got to go to the gym every week, or I got to work out. So you break it down into steps. When we set outcome goals and say, okay, because I've worked with some going for Olympics or, different things, they want to get on the podium. When we are actually on game day, or when we're focusing on that goal is parked, because you need to be focusing on the performance. Forget the outcome and just focus on what is necessary, because that can be something that will deter you, especially, if you get too focused on that outcome. So that's just something in regards to when you are setting the goals. A lot of people can have performance slumps. I think everybody has probably experienced some kind of performance slump in their life, whether it be for a career, a relationship, a job, whatever, even a sports. And what happens, or what are some of the things, is there could be physical breaks down. So if you're in a sport, or even if you're a job, you might have something that is physically, broken down, that you can't do a certain job. Technical problems, meaning that maybe, okay, say we're going into golf season, or people are going into cycling and there might be problems with a golf swing, or there might be problems with, if you're trying to run or even riding the bike, that you can't get certain techniques down. The tactical knowledge may fall apart, where you don't know the lay of the land. Maybe you take a new job and there's certain things that you're not familiar with, or they've changed. I mean, we're in an environment where everything changes now, and all of a sudden, I don't know it all. Like, they've changed the system. So you might have that tactical knowledge. You don't have the expertise anymore. Mental weakness. Maybe your self-esteem's been affected. Your confidence has been affected. So you might have, you're starting to go downhill. If you're involved in teams, there could be changes or dynamics, or one of the team members may have a problem. Maybe they're going through personal stuff, either at home or that, and that's affecting everything, and it affects your performance. And then you can just get the blues, or feel out of sync. So those are just some of the reasons that people will fall into a slump. One of the things that I want people to be aware of, and I'm talking about a flow here right now, and when things are going well, when we are operating at our best, that is normally when we've got the skill level and there's that challenge there for us. So if we look at the diagram that I'm showing you, I'm showing that if you have a challenge, but your skill is not there, that's when anxiety can kick in. If you have all the skill in the world and you're an expert in your field and you're very good, but there's no challenge anymore, that's when boredom will kick in, and that can when a slump happens. What we want to do in order to remain in the flow, continuing to operate, is keeping that level and challenge and the skill growing and kind of moving in the right direction together. Dealing with distractions. So I'm going to just touch on some things right now. And what are the distractions? I think I touched on these before. You can have emotional states, injury, fatigue, thoughts going on. With external, it can be clients, it can be other people, it can be family members, supervisors, it can be coworkers, it can be weather, all of those things outside. So emotional states and blocks that can also impact us. We can get anger, depression, lack of confidence, confusion, tension, anxiety. One of the things I want to just talk about right now is, how do you get yourself in a good state very quickly? So I'm going to demonstrate what we call the learning state. I talked about the flow a minute ago. One of the terms that you may have heard of in the past is being in the zone. When we are in the zone, that is when we are laser focused, having concentration, no thoughts nothing is really affecting us. It's when our body and mind are in sync with one another, and we're just able to do what we've trained ourselves to do. This learning state is a technique that I teach kids for classes. I teach people that are going for interviews or going to do a presentation. And I teach my high-end athletes when they're about to perform. And what it is, it's taking your foveal vision and opening it up. So I'm right now on a computer and I have my little webcam green light that's right there. And if you are listening or watching, what you could do to just experience this is just pick a focal point that is just above your eye level in front of you, and you would focus on that. What I do to just kind of give you a visual is I would put my hands together in front of me. I would stare at that spot and lock my eyes in on that spot. And then what I would do is start moving my hands away while my eyes are locked on that very green light that I'm looking at, but it could be something on the wall. And I'm moving my hands apart and I'm moving them back towards my ears. And what I'm doing is focusing on that one spot or dot or whatever it is, but I'm also watching and trying to open up my vision. And if you're doing this, you'll find that your eyes kind of get a little weird, but it's like you're almost going into a hypnotic state. And then what I do is I wiggle my fingers when they're beside me and I'm looking at that spot, and you'll find you do go into like a hypnotic trance. And that puts you in what we call the learning state. And in the learning state, one, it opens up your mind so that you can absorb information easily. It removes any stress and puts you in a relaxed position state. And it allows you to just also access any of the knowledge that you've been taught. So it's a great technique to put yourself in a good place, to just be in that place of no stress, highly focused. You're putting yourself in the zone, basically. So in order to gain mental control, I talked about distractions, and I'm watching time, and we're going to open it up for questions in a minute. I want to just touch on a couple of key things. One of the things to do, if you have thoughts that are constantly chatter, mental chaos that get in the way or kind of consume you, one of the things we want to do is teach you how to do thought stoppage. How I do this is I get people to wear an elastic band. I'll choose a red one because that's the color of a stop sign. And say we were focusing on creating powerful performance language. So I talked about the unconscious mind not knowing reality to fantasy, and your conscious mind a lot of the times gets in the way, where we have our analytical, logical mind. So I will get you to come up with some powerful statements. So say you want to be more confident, say you want to run faster, say you want to be a great speaker. I would say, okay, come up with some present tense statements. I'm confident, I'm relaxed, I'm calm. Say those are things you want to work on. And when your mind goes, I'm nervous, I'm freaking out, what you do is you snap your elastic band that's on your wrist and go, ouch. No, you don't have to go, ouch. But you snap your elastic band and then you say your mantra, your power statement, whatever it may be. Because remember, the unconscious mind doesn't know reality to fantasy. So the more you start saying the statements that you want to be, the more your unconscious mind start believing it and helping you get to where you want to go. Also, we want to interrupt patterns because our thoughts produce behaviors. The behaviors produces experience. Those experiences can have emotions and state. And that's a cycle that we run every day. We repeat our thoughts every day. We have 60 or 70,000 thoughts, and we repeat those every single day. And we repeat 90% of the same. So if you've got things that are happening in your life and you're running into roadblocks, then we need to rewire and reprogram. And these are some simple techniques to, one, think about the thoughts that you're having, think about the language that you're using. And if you need to interrupt patterns, maybe, you're working on healthier eating and you keep going to the chip bag or something, then again, changing state, snapping elastic bands. And just anytime you are having those great moments, just make sure you kind of take a moment and just imagine them, or when you have or want to have those great moments, you can actually do mental rehearsals in your mind. And that's what I call that positive imagery, is I call them actually mental rehearsals of your performance. And so one of the things is, if you do run into a roadblock, you do have a bumpy day, what I always say is, before you go to bed at night, rewind and then replay in your mind how you would have want that day to go, because that's the image that you are leaving yourself. I do a lot of hypnosis, or I was trained and I did a lot, but I really now focus on helping people with the mental rehearsals and programming their mind with the imagery and also the language. And it's amazing, once you change your thought process, once you change the patterns that you've had, and the results that you start getting, where you move from that effect side into the cause, and you move away from the reasons and you start getting the results. It's pretty amazing. So what I always have people identify is their strength and the development areas. And when I'm talking about strengths and development, I would go back to my 8 components and listen to your self-talk, try to interrupt those patterns that are sabotaging you, and really reinforce. And when we go back to the 8 components, what I have people do is actually rank where they're at. And I would have them rank out of 1 to 10. 1 means you don't have that skill, and 10 means you've mastered it. So I would take each of those and say, okay, where are you out of 1 to 10, and rank them. And I'm going to now just leave it for, oh, there we go. I'm going to just now turn it over to Kevin, and if there's any questions.
Great. Thank you, Corey. That's a bunch of great information. We got to kind of process all of it.
I know.
You unpacked a lot for us right there. So thank you for that. A couple of things stood out to me, and I'm always going to go to a real practical place, because a lot of our learners are approaching retirement, just entering retirement, or in retirement, right? So when you think about peak performance, sometimes like, okay, yeah, there's the athletes, there's the corporate people, there's the business people. What would be peak performance? What would be some of the peak performance type things that would apply to somebody that's retired from business, maybe, or from work? Because we still want to be at our peak performance. We still want that, right?
Yeah. And I've actually coached a lot of people that are going through that, because when you are in a workforce, you have an identity. You have your own identity that you think. I mean, I was a banker. Now I'm a barker. No, I'm kidding. But that's where you have an identity, and then all of a sudden, your whole world has changed.
Right.
And now what it is. So, but I have a lot of people that I say, you're not retired, you're redefining yourself. Right. So I have people that say, you know what, now I have time, maybe I can take up a sport, whether it be pickleball. I know some people are taking up here. And then there's golf. I've coached a lot of golfers that are retired and they want to do it, or they might even have the time to go to a yoga class or something like that. And it doesn't have to be a super athlete, but it's, how do I redefine myself and now take those skills and create, and maybe it's a hobby they want to do, and maybe they're just learning something new. So again, it goes back to, okay, I want to, I'm trying to think, what would be some of the different sports that somebody retired would take? I mean, I mentioned golf because that's one that a lot of people get into, but it could be, just traveling. And even in that, it's like, okay, how do I enjoy it? What's the goal we have? What's the performance that I want when I go? Am I going to try to skydive? I mean, that's not going to be me, but still, but again, too, it's how you're retired now. But does it mean your life is over? No, it just means it's a new chapter and you're going to redefine yourself. So having, and what does that look like now? What does my retirement look like? Does it mean spending more time with the grandkids? Well, if it's the grandkids, are we going to be doing something? Maybe I can do something with them and I have no clue how to play a video game with them. And that's what it can be about. It can be about anything that they want to do. And it doesn't have to be a super sport. It could be just something that they enjoy.
Yeah, it dawned on me when you talked about the cause and effect. I love the idea that we got to take responsibility, definitely. Sometimes to identify the things we need to work on, we have to be honest about the effects of what we're doing, right? In other words,
exactly.
I'm not responding well to my spouse, or I don't know what to do with my adult children, right? Things like that. Like, this is a mess. I don't like how this is. And I want to take responsibility for that. And there's a way to even apply what you're talking about in this interpersonal stuff. Like, how 100%. Can I do my best when I'm around other people that are really hard to be around.
Exactly.
Right? That could be something that's like life changing for somebody to use all these principles.
It's true. And so when I say talk about the unconscious mind, that's where memories and emotions are stored. So if we think about, we might be responding to a certain situation, it's because maybe we've been triggered. Something's triggered us that's kind of built up over the years and we get pissed off. But if you step back, and when you're in that emotional state, all of your rationale goes out the door, because you're not operating from a rational, logical mind now in an emotional state. You're operating from an emotional mind. Yeah. And so maybe sometimes when we want to change that, and that's why I'm always big on reflection, and it may not be in the moment. So it may be, I reacted to my spouse a certain way. I didn't like how I dealt with that person in the store that, overcharged me or something. But when I'm calmed down, it's like, okay, what can I learn from this? What do I need to learn from this that will help identify maybe why I was triggered and what came up? Because we have a memory bank that we store our memories either by chronicle origin or by function. So we have a whole bunch of angry memories. We have a whole bunch of sad memories, and those things can easily get triggered that open up the file. And something very small that happens can seem so big to us at that moment, because it's been something we've been just filling up the backpack that we've been carrying around, this load, and then boom, it's triggered. So yeah.
And to that point, how many times have you heard somebody say as they get older, that's just how they are? We kind of excuse
exactly. Exactly.
No, they don't have to be that way. They can take responsibility, and thanks to neuroplasticity, we can change the mind, and we can do things differently. Yeah. So we're not stuck. We're definitely not stuck.
No, we're not.
I think that's a good thing. I love the focus part of it, because I'm a big believer in that. And I think distractions absolutely sabotage us. I mean, we live in a very noisy, distracted world, and it just pulls us apart from distraction, and I came across, I was teaching on focus years ago, and I had this idea, and I throw it out there. It's like really challenges me to think, and you were talking about it. Let me get your thought on it. Can you focus on something that you cannot see?
100%.
You think you can?
I think you can, because again, you use the word, can you focus on something you cannot see? So you're assuming that you have to see something, but you can easily feel. Like, have you ever been driving in a car or in a room, and all of a sudden you might smell, okay, say you walk outside and all of a sudden you smell, wow, that smells so good. And all of a sudden you're feeling this. It's like, oh, I can smell steak, or I can smell something, or I smell apple pie. Or you walk somewhere and all of a sudden a song comes on and it reminds you back to high school days, or a vacation you were on, and you're like, wow. And all of a sudden you're there, and maybe you're not seeing it, but you're definitely experiencing it. And that's where we don't always have to see something. And we all experience things different. So I do this exercise about, a visualization exercise. And after I do it, I say, okay, can you tell me, did you see anything? And they're like, no, I didn't see anything. Did you hear anything? Yeah, I heard this. I heard my dog barking in the background, or I heard the radio on. Did you feel anything? Oh yeah, I could just feel it on me. So again, we all experiencing things different. And so when you say, can you focus on something that you can't see? Yes. And so we all.
Yeah, it could be somewhat semantic, right? It could be semantic, because you can experience or feel something, but is that really focused on it? Because it goes back to your point of the value of visualization and putting away distractions. The whole purpose of that is so that you can focus exclusively on something at the exclusion of everything else. And I think that's what I'm trying to get to in what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
It gets semantic for sure in that sense.
Exactly.
But focus is so important. I mean, without a goal or focus, you're just kind of floating around. You're just at the whim of what happens, and you're not really making intentional progress. And
you know what, too? I think you just said it, intentional progress, where you have an intent, you want to make the progress. And so many people, I mean, a lot of people are able to achieve what they want, but so many people give up because they have that I can't, and that whole thought process, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You had were those in order? You mentioned goal last on your 8. I found that interesting. I would have wanted to start with a goal because, like, where am I going?
Because you're probably, are you very focused on goals?
Yes, I
Yeah,
am.
that's why you wanted to focus. And for me, there wasn't an order there. There was a circle.
Okay.
So you can start anywhere there.
Anywhere. Okay.
But one of the things too is, and the reason I put passion and fun in there is when that's lacking,
right,
it's really hard to set those goals. So I think too, if you're passionate about something and you're enjoying it, it doesn't have to be something like fun is different for anybody and passion is different for everyone. So so no, there wasn't an order, but the fact that you said that just told me you're a very goal focused person. It's like, no, that's where we start. That's where we start.
I mean, I when I get in the car, I got to know where I'm going. I'm just not going to drive around.
Exactly.
I got to tell the GPS where I'm going first. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. You didn't use this term. It was probably embedded somewhere in here, but imposter syndrome has been a big term lately in how people kind of self-sabotage. That's another term, right? Yeah. Right. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that fits into some of this?
So I always am looking and listening to language. I'm trained in a bunch of things with language, so I'm always listening to language. And it's amazing how people, even the way they talk about themselves and statements that they make, is they are downplaying what is really happening. And so when you talk about self-sabotaging, again, you go back to a goal. If you have a goal and then all of a sudden you're not achieving it, maybe you've talked yourself out of it. I'm not good enough. I'm not. And a lot of that comes from programming. So, you know, when I'm dealing with somebody, I'm looking at their parenting, I'm looking at their upbringing, and I don't care if they're 80 years old or if they're 40 years old or if they're 20 years old. We've all been programmed, and that unconscious mind has got a whole bunch of stuff in it. So I always am listening to the language that we use. And one thing I didn't mention that I normally mention is the unconscious mind doesn't process negatives. So if we say no problem, it hears problem. If we say don't worry, it hears worry, because it negates that don't and that. So powerful performance language. And when I talk about language, people think it's, oh, but it's just words. But it's also with those words, there's a feeling that goes, there's a situation. So that's where I come up with the power, people have heard about affirmations. Affirmations are talked about because they work. So the self-sabotage is when maybe something's been triggered. So your memory bank has been triggered, or your emotional bank has been triggered, where maybe something happened in the future where you weren't successful, or a coach or a teacher or a parent said something to you and you doubt yourself. So that unconscious mind programming and that wiring is there. So you might start on a journey and you do well. Boom, something might get triggered. Somebody might say something, or you have a failure, meaning you didn't succeed in something. So your inner coach starts talking you out of it. No, we can't do this. No, we're not good enough, and all that stuff. And that's where you get a lot. I mean, most people have that I'm not good enough in them. Right. It's part of our society too. I mean, that's where, so getting out of that self-sabotage, I always ask people, the words that you're using, are they supporting you or are they sabotaging you? And it's you go from doing things unconsciously. And an exercise I have people do is, you know, for a week, like we might do a session a week, or we might see each other twice a month. I said, I want you to just think about and be very consciously aware of your conversations with other people, of your inner self-talk and what is being said. Because a lot of the times when you do that, they go, I can't believe how many times I say, don't worry, no problem. And so that's where I brought in that elastic band. And I said, every time I want you to snap, because this is a kinesthetic. It kind of triggers your neural pathways and that, and let's start programming yourself differently. And making a change doesn't happen overnight. Like it's something that you have to consider. I mean, how many people start in January with New Year's resolutions, and then the next thing, by the end of January, you're not going to the gym anymore. You're not doing things. You join that new club. You only went twice and you never went because it's like, oh, you know what? I'm not good enough. I don't know. I don't care. Or maybe you're not having fun. Who knows?
I think, you know, what you're saying is that most people struggle with those things. It's a real thing. And don't pretend like it's not there. It's really there. But being aware of that, and then listening to how you talk to yourself, like you said, and then rephrasing how you talk to yourself. And as somebody said in the Karina said, being our biggest cheerleader, right? Be nice to yourself.
Yeah,
Don't be so hard on
it's
yourself.
so true. I mean, and there's where you can make the choice to be nice. If there's one person that can be nice to you, it can be you. So it's like you have control of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mindset. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's a mindset's a big thing too, and some of this gets into that mindset and helping yourself and getting help to change your mindset as you look at things, right? Taking responsibility is a mindset, and some generations don't have that. They're like, no, somebody's going to do that for me. I'm not going to do that. That's somebody else's job. That's a mindset. Taking responsibility. Also, being not average. That's another mindset that I like to push for. Like, don't be average, be above average, work to be, and you mentioned that in your presentation too, right? And working on your mindset in a positive, constructive way is such a big part of so much of this, because again, it goes back to how you think, and then that affects how you talk and how you behave, like you said.
And again, it's about how we've been programmed too. So I mentioned, the beliefs and the values, and now the values are what's important to you. So if you go, say you were retiring and you were like, what's important to you now about retiring? And you would have a list. And so put that list down. It's like about the freedom now, the flexibility, the time, and all of those things are important. And then you go, okay, so it might be, I have more time with my family. And I always say, find out what is your values, what you've been programmed. And then rank them in order of importance. So maybe your family is number one, because maybe you were in a busy job and you didn't get time to spend with family, or maybe it's friends, or maybe it's traveling, or maybe it's doing something new. And when you rank it in order of importance, then it's like, okay, those top 5, I want to set some goals around them. Are they in my life right now? And if family I haven't been able to spend time with, okay, what can I do then? And you set some goals around that, because when we talk about the fun and the passion, when our values aren't being met, that's when we're not happy. That's when, I'm not doing what I love. I'm not doing what I want. And sometimes we don't know. So it's answer the question, what's important to you about blank? Retirement, family, whatever, and come up with a list. And remember, your values are stored in your unconscious mind. So your conscious mind will come up with maybe 5 to 7 right away, but think about it, and think about a time when you were happy. What was present then that's not present now? Oh, wait, okay, I was socializing, I was exercising, I was doing, and okay, those are some of the values that maybe aren't being met right now, and you need to bring them back into your life.
I often encourage our learners, especially as we move into retirement, to really get serious about your values, because most of us spent a lot of our life working out somebody else's values. And now we have the opportunity to kind of say, wait a minute, this is how I want to spend the second half of my life. And this is what's important. And these become my priorities, and these priorities determine what I say yes and no to. And this is how I want to live. And you just got to free yourself to do that, because you won't be happy if you don't do that.
And too is retirement, as I said, you can say retirement. I always say it's redefining time. Sure. I have a woman with me that works in my dog training world. So she was corporate for 35 years, and she was bringing her dog we had socials and stuff. And I said, what are you going to do when you redefine yourself? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you're getting ready to retire. What are you going to do? She goes, I don't know. I've been working so much. And I said, well, do you like doing the dog stuff? She goes, yeah. I said, well, why don't you help me in class and train some dogs? And that was 11 years ago. So she's been retired. She now does dog training. She became a yoga instructor. She went and worked at our local vet. Well, she still is working at our local vet. So, and one of our universities was doing a whole documentary on people that redefine themselves in retirement, and they actually used her as one of the examples. But I said, you know what, your retirement, like you just said, it's an opportunity to do something for you, and there's a clean slate. What is it that you want to do? And whatever you do, as long as it makes you happy and there's some fun and some passion, and it lights you up every day, then hey, I say go for it.
Absolutely. On the learning state, or the zone, as you called it, is that, if I boil it down even more, is that a focused, non-distracted state by which you're going to be able to process and
Yes, it
that's
is
really
a focused, non-distracted. I mean, you may be confident. I mean, there's a number of things. I do a lot of brain gym with people too. So, I mean, like, I'm not going to get into it here, but it's, if you do that, I mean, I show you with the hands and that, it feels, some people go, oh, that's so weird. And I said, okay, well, I'm using my hands and just putting them to the side and wiggling them, so that it's kind of just to help you open up that vision. But say you were standing in a room, and say it was, you were going somewhere new, say you joined a new organization, something in your retirement, you're a little bit nervous, it's your first time out. Even in that room, if you're looking just at another point, like over top of people's head or just at the other side of the room, but then you keep the focus and then you see something on the right side, like maybe there's a picture on a wall on the right, and then maybe there's a door on the left, and you do that, it puts you in a focused, calm, relaxed state.
Yeah.
So you don't have to put
really
the hands up.
Those are just strategies to get you into that state, so that you're going to, and even hypnosis, same thing. It's not about the hypnosis. It's about getting you to a state where you are calm.
Exactly.
And you can receive this information and think
100%. Yeah.
That's really, So people get all mixed up in the technique. It's really, the goal of the technique is to get you to that calm state so that you can, Do you think peak performance is episodic? And what I mean by that is, I don't think I can maintain peak performance forever. I mean, like steady state. I mean, athletes don't either. I mean,
it all depends. And again, when I say peak performance, people do think it's athletic. They're thinking of an Olympic athlete. They're thinking of a pro golfer. I coach a lot of people that maybe they did have a successful career. Now they just want to make sure that the rest of their life is focused on what they want and to change. And it's the identity thing has a big part of it. So it's more about being your best, operating at your best, being confident, relaxed, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's getting into a hobby now or not, but that it's not distracting you. There's not frustration coming in. Yes, we're always going to have those moments, but it's about, if we decide on a hobby, if we decide to take a trip, if we decide to do something and we're just being the best that we can be, we're confident, we're relaxed, we're not letting anything distract us. That's what I talk about. I mean, for anyone, it's just being your best. And what your best is, that's what you determine. That's not what anybody else determines.
I'm big on the word best. And here's what I've realized in my years of it. I'm not always at my best. That's the truth. I mean, I could be on right here for this thing, and I could go out there and I could, really get upset with a dog, just really be.
Okay. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. No, I'm upset with you. I'm kidding.
I'm making you not your best.
But you see what I'm talking about? Even us doing this talk, and some people will do, you'll go on whatever. It's because I'm focused. I'm I mean, I do have a dog barking outside, but that's forget. I'm not listening to that because I'm focused. And so it's almost, and you talk, I mean, I talk about hypnosis. Hypnosis is a highly focused state. And you can be in that state. Think about driving a car or watching a movie. Everything else doesn't exist at that time. Well, yes, the other cars and that, but you're in a hypnotic trance because you're just doing what you've trained yourself to do. And I guess that's where I want people to just realize is being a peak performer doesn't mean you're being an Olympic athlete. It means you're being your best and you're focused and being present in what you're doing at that moment too.
Yes. Good. Well, we all have the opportunity to get better at those things. And we all benefit when we are at our best, right? When you're at your
100%.
best around me, I'm better, vice versa, right? It all overflows. A couple questions also from the chat. Robert is a military veteran with PTSD. He says he's either hyper focused or can't focus much at all. It's kind of all or nothing. And there's PTSD. There's other mental issues that really make this challenge extra challenging for folks because they have other things they have to address in there as well. Anything you can say to encourage?
And you know what, that learning state I just did is something that's really great. And, we do a lot. It's again, if you're hyper focused, it's just now again, it's about how do I train myself? How do I bring myself down? And it is definitely practice. Breath work helps. Even exercise, I always say helps, because it gets the body, but then it's actually, and here's understand, when I was in the corporate world, I had a highly stressful job. I was hyper focused every day. I had to be. There was so much responsibility. When I left, one, my identity changed. And also, I didn't know what to do with myself because I now went to a semi-retirement and was redefining myself. So it took me, I ended up taking yoga, which I'm like, I'm never going to take yoga. I can't be in a yoga class because there's no way. I'm a hype up. Let's play hockey kind of thing. And I actually had to learn how to calm myself down, how to bring myself down. The Brain Gym has some great exercises that just help calm the body too. And there's one that we just do with a hookup. And going back to Roberts, it is something that you have to figure out, taking like, how do I train myself? How do I bring myself down or get into that in between, whatever you want to call state that you want to be in. But it does take practice and it does take time. And it's not, that's the other thing too, with the mental, it's not tangible. It's not like, okay, I can go to the gym, I can lift this and I can do this, or I can go on a run. It takes time. It takes just being kind to yourself and doing the different things.
Right. In some cases, others may see it before you even see it yourself.
100%.
Yeah. So
because we're our toughest critique. Most of us are.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate you saying it takes time because, think about it, we've got 50, 60, 70, 80 years of training our brain to do things. So we're talking about kind of resetting some of those things. They're not going to happen the first time you do it.
And understand too, there's a lot of programming that's gone on, a lot of memories and experience and emotions that are there. And so it's not something that just, sometimes you have to unpack it. And that's where the unpacking part is. It's not always, we're not always aware of how to do it.
Right.
So, there's all kinds of support and stuff out there that
having help doing it. It's really a good idea, as you do quite a bit. One last question from the chat. Mentel asks what books you recommend for enhancing mental performance. Anything that jumps off to your head?
Oh my gosh, there's been so many that now I can't even. I have a whole reference of them. I don't know if I can share anything later or not, but that's again. I've done.
You like to listen to, or somebody, any podcasts you listen to, or anything that jumps out.
I listen to a lot of peak performance ones, and there's one called Peak Performance. I do. Tony Robbins, Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of my biggest. I've taken many of his workshops and that, and he's all about having brain coherence or heart and brain coherence. So anything with the Dr. Joe Dispenza is great. So and the Peak Performance, there's a bunch of them out there on Peak Performance. The podcast, there's some. If you
could just search that phrase and a bunch would pop up, I think, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Good. Well, good. Our time has flown by, and